Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisum, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. Well, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast. John Chisum here for Nashville Christian Songwriters, and I'm sitting here with the amazing Stu G. Stu, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here, really.
Wow. Well,
hi, everyone. On Facebook Live.
Facebook Live. We're doing a live thing. It's too far. It's across the room, so I can't respond to anybody, but hey. So, wow. Well, man, I feel like I'm just in the presence of British rock royalty.
Oh, my gosh.
No, dude. I mean, I'm serious. Of course, I knew who you were, right? I mean, but we hadn't been in the same circles together, and the kind of things you've done with Delirious and Martin Smith. And I'm going to read some of your creds here in a minute, but man, it's an honor to have you here just to hear your heart. You've got a great project to talk about today.
Thank you.
So
it's great to meet you and have a chance to chat about it for a bit.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Well, let me just introduce Stu in case you're unfamiliar with him. Stu is probably best known for his work with the UK-based band Delirious. You guys traveled, what was it, 94 to 09, I think is what
That's
I read.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but he's also a producer, author, songwriter, and has recorded with and or toured with just about everyone in the book for the last 30 years. Martin Smith, Kevin Prosh, Michael W. Smith, All Sons and Daughters, Amy Grant, Matt Redman, Chris Tomlin, Meredith Andrews, Johnny Swim, Casting Crowns, and probably just so many more than we could probably mention here, right? So Stu's just released an amazing new project called the Beatitudes Project, and this is featuring another laundry list of some people I just named, like Martin Smith, Amy Grant, Michael W., Audrey Assad, Hillsong United, is it Joel Houston, right?
Yes.
Matt Marr, John Mark McMillan, David and Leslie, All Sons and Daughters, Amanda Cook, love Amanda, Propaganda, The Brilliance, love The Brilliance, Anthony Skinner, Terry and Bass, I hadn't heard Terry, but lovely. And then Becky Harding on spoken word.
That's right.
I love that.
Right.
I sounded Southern when I said that. I
did.
love that. But I really do. I mean, I love how you intersperse. I don't want to jump on the Beatitudes Project. We'll wait, but I love what you did with that. So we can talk about that in a bit. But, I have to take a breath after reading all that, man. 30 years of just amazing things, Grammy nominations, Dove Awards, all kinds of stuff, dude.
Like, those things, that's not why you do it, but I just look back and think, it has been a real ride, and to have the chance to be a part of some of those things, especially the Delirious years, that was such an honor and a privilege, and I have no idea why lightning struck on that, but I'm just glad that I was able to be along for the ride on that one and to help pioneer some things. And I think that's one of the, we can get into this later, but I think that's one of the reasons why the Beatitudes Project has been so important for me, is because I don't want to stop pioneering.
Absolutely. You co-founded Delirious with Martin, right?
Yes.
So, what was that like? Didn't you guys open for Bon Jovi or travel?
We did, yeah. So, being from the UK, and we were totally church boys, come from that environment, but there's not such a huge Christian music business over there, and so we very much had this idea that things shouldn't be separated, that we inhabit this one big world. And so we made music for the church, but we also released singles into the UK charts, and we had to sit alongside our peers on the high street just to be able to have a presence out there to sell CDs and what have you. So so we had the chance to tour with Bon Jovi, and we played Glastonbury Festival and a bunch of sort of more of the general market festivals across Europe, as well as being known for our worship music, and it was just fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, just a great ride.
Amazing. Yeah. And our U.S. listeners might not know what the high street is.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, what I mean by that is that, rather than just being available in Christian bookstores, we distributed into the mainstream
right, but doesn't every town have like a high street?
Oh yeah,
that's like the marketplace or the main. We'd say main street.
Yeah,
here,
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like the place where you go get your hair cut or buy your groceries or your Cadburys.
Yeah. And really, that's just like, for me, when I talk about that, that's kind of a metaphor for just being in the general kind of world, and not just separated off into a little subculture.
Oh, I think it's a beautiful metaphor for it. It's great, but I just want to make sure our listeners know what a high street is because they might not know. And I've been over there in the UK many, many times through my life, so I get it. But that what a ride, to be able to do that and to really help define a generation, really of worship. And when you think of My Glorious, I Could Sing of Your Love Forever, Can You Feel the Mountains? Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? Such watershed songs for all of us, during that time that live on, right?
Yeah. I when I think about it, and there was no real master plan, it was one step at a time. And, even with the music, like people say that, that what we were a part of helped define like a whole movement or whatever. And it's like, we were just being obedient to our feelings, our what we felt called to. And, there was no big kind of world domination plan or anything like that. But just kind of living in the moment and being present to it. And and doing it the best that we could.
But isn't that just the way God works?
I think so.
It's like we can plan and plan. My life scripture, one of mine, is Proverbs 16:9 that says, "The mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." And so you guys, I listened to another interview with you, a podcast interview, just kind of prepping, and I just loved how you described that whole thing, how you guys kind of figured out after you were making some cassettes that you could actually make 800 pounds a month doing this, right? And so you just kind of got in the car, the van, and started doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that we had Tim, who was the keyboard player and now runs Big Church Day Out over there. But, I'm glad that it wasn't just left to me or Martin, the more creative types, Right. We need the folks that can do the math as well.
Absolutely. Well, and now you've moved on, of course, and we're going to talk about those things. But I was really impressed with your mission statement. Right. And I just would love if we could take just a few minutes and kind of dig into some of the motivations for not only what you've done in the past, but for what you're doing now. And you have 4 bullet points. The first one is engaging with people's stories through music, writing, and conversation. When you say people's stories, I mean, of course, we get the music, writing, and conversation, but what kind of people? I mean, what kind of stories are the most interesting, and why would that be the lead bullet point on your mission statement, your personal mission statement?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a lot in that sentence. I think one for me is that I come more alive when I'm with other people. So I very much relished the sort of the community and collaboration thing. So I would get very bored if it was just left to me and my story, so I'm very much a connector, and I think that's what I mean. I want to dive into so for your story, for instance, you said you're at a low point. It's like I identify with that. And that's what I mean. I want to, in community, draw those things out, have conversations, and make music and art and songs from those experiences.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I know when we get into the Beatitudes Project in a little while, you were capturing unique stories of people who really weren't, they were not like the upper echelon kind of people.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's very cool. So the second one was, or is, enhancing a creative spirit in yourself and in others. How do you do that, and what does that look like?
I think that, it's a little bit kind of out there in the ether, this comment, but, enhancing a creative spirit in myself and others, it's, and here's where I pause because I'm kind of thinking about this.
That's all right.
It kind of ties into the next one, actually, where it says encouraging a community of pioneers. So, creativity is everything to me. And, when I look back to when I first started my work as an electrician, when I left school, and I thought that I'd be doing that for the rest of my life, and there's some things that I like about the idea of working, 8 till 5 every day or something, and actually being off the rest of the time. But there's other parts of that kind of scare me a bit, because for me, a creative spirit is always just kind of like looking for the next thing and seeing what's out there, seeing what we can get involved with, and when I say enhancing, it's kind of like just getting better at it, I guess. And I want to encourage that in others. Like, okay, here's a better phrase, is like, I'm really curious. I'm curious about things. I'm not certain about a lot of stuff, and it's I think that a posture of curiosity and curiousness is what this kind of speaks into.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Sorry, I was getting involved with my tech.
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool. So encouraging a community of pioneers just kind of flows right out of the whole creative spirit thing, and which flows really into the fourth one, endeavoring to move beyond the familiar. And
so I look back and remember a story of, people talking about astronauts that went into space, and they see the world from space, and then, or imagine the Neil Armstrong. I don't know if he walked on the moon more than once, but he got to do that for the first time, and it's like, where do you go from that in the rest of your life?
Real, right?
And so for me, being a part of something that pioneered a little bit, and it kind of ruins you because you never want to settle for the norm, and so that's what I mean about the pioneering spirit, and so and when I say about community, it's like, well, if there are other people that just don't want to settle for the norm, like, then I want to be around them and be a part of helping folks, push beyond the familiar and into the new ideas.
Great. Well, you're perfect for the Song Revolution podcast then.
Thank you.
Because that's really, our mission. As I was telling you before we started taping the show today, that I just get tired of people complaining and, blaming. I work with a lot of aspiring songwriters, and a lot of them, are looking to the music industry to do something for them. And it's like, guys, you're just waiting on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You can't sit around and wait for some record company to discover you if you're not out there building a platform, if you're not writing phenomenal songs, if you're not taking, the bull by the horn, so to speak, and really doing something. Being passive doesn't get us anywhere, and just complaining. So establish this out of the old proverb. I don't think it's even in the Bible. I think it's a Chinese proverb or something, that it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. But to me, that's biblical. It's like, get up off your blessed assurance and do something.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
I mean, let's go start a revolution. Let's find some new ways to get music out. Let's get with Stu G and go create some fantastic things. So I love your spirit, man.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about. I'd like at some point. I'd love for us to talk, of course, in depth about the Beatitudes Project. And I know you've been a decade or more in kind of germinating this thing, and now you've got all these crazy great people, including yourself, all over this thing. But at some point, as we talk through that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your songwriting process, since our listeners are primarily songwriters.
Yeah.
Maybe just weave in a little bit, about some of the song stories, as if you want to. So, I think I've got a quote here about the. Did I do a quote here? I meant to. Let's see. Yeah. In addition to the. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Let me put my glasses on. In addition to the meek, the Beatitudes Project reveals a wide world of connected stories. We're talking about stories a while ago. Real people from all faiths and walks of life who embody mercy, poverty, the hungry and thirsty, the mourners, the peacemakers, and the pure in heart, as seen and heard and experienced through a 21st century lens. So along with the album and the book that I want you to talk about, there's an upcoming documentary film, View from the Hill. The book is called Words from the Hill, and then the Beatitudes Project is the album. So just jump in, dude. Tell us about it and kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you. Well, so it's been a long dream of mine. Probably 20 years ago when Delirious was touring, and we'd get asked to sign a CD and put our favorite scripture on it or whatever. It would always be for me Matthew 5:6-7, the Sermon on the Mount. And very quickly, I was drawn to the Beatitudes, and I thought that we would make a Delirious record based around the themes of the Beatitudes, and it never quite came about. And I'm glad about that, because it's a different thing. My understanding was different. Back then, I thought that the Beatitudes were a series of virtues to attain to receive a blessing, right?
Wow.
And what I've learned is that it's not about attaining anything, that these announcements are announcements of presence. So like when we're at the bottom of life, that the blessing is that God is on your side. And so I used to think one thing. I've had my my understanding has changed, and I thought, wow, this is so encouraging. When there's failure, when your spirit is crushed, blessed are the poor in spirit. When you've left the end of your rope, and you feel like there's nothing left, the announcement is, I'm on your side, you're blessed. When there's grief, so it is about losing someone close to you, but it's also about the grief of change, the careers ending, divorce, maybe you've been found out of something you've been keeping a secret, and it's time to grieve. And because if we don't, our comfort won't come. It's you're blessed if you're meek. So I used to think meek was a virtue, but as I've discovered, it's those whose presence is ignored. It's those of us who have the power of choice taken away. It's the displaced, the bullied, the marginalized, the overpowered, the underserved, and so very much the invitation in the meek announcement is to open our eyes to those around us who we don't normally see. And because if the blessing is presence, then the invitation is to be present. And hunger and thirst, what do you ache for? Do you ache for global peace? Do you ache for the poor in your community? Do you ache for change in the addiction that you have, the thing that's under your skin? And the announcement is, when you've messed up again, and in that moment of failure, it's like, I'm on your side, I'm with you, you're blessed. And so I began to understand that there's this sort of announcement of presence to all humanity, and the invitation is to be present and to begin to show mercy, and to begin to live with an undivided heart, and to begin to be peacemakers and not exponents of violence, and if we do that, and if we live like that, if our allegiance is with this counterintuitive king and this upside down subversive message, then our allegiance will be tested. You know, if we choose not to take sides, then we'll get a pushback. You know, and so if we're swimming upstream and become holy troublemakers, you know, that we'll suffer some kind of pushback, you know, and so and so that's the idea behind it, that these things are upside down announcements. You know, when Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," he's kind of saying it's not you, Roman soldiers, the most powerful, that are going to inherit the earth. It's these people here. It's those that you've taken away their land. They're the ones that are going to get the earth. You know, so it's subversive, it's political, and you know, it's the invitation to be where God is, which is with the poor, with those that are grieving, with those that are displaced, meek, bullied, marginalized, those that are hungry and thirsty for justice and feel like they are powerless to do anything about it. And I think that there are some questions that the Beatitudes answer, like, where is God? And I think what I've just said kind of answers that. He is with the poor in spirit. He's with the mourning, with the hungry and thirsty, with the meek, you know. And I think that, you know, one of the things that offends people is the certainty of statements like Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." But I think that the Jesus way is laid out in the Beatitudes, you know, and it doesn't look like telling people they're going to hell or judging. You know, it looks like showing mercy. It looks the opposite of that stuff. It's not telling people who are in and who's out. It's actually showing mercy, becoming peacemakers, and getting in trouble for it.
That's amazing. I mean, I love that phrase, the announcement of presence.
Yeah.
And then the invitation to be present.
Yeah.
That is so powerful.
Yeah.
Just right there. And of course, everything you said and even that last bit right there. But wow, the announcement of presence.
Yes. I think that, you know, one of the things as a human is that I want certainty and I want comfort, you know, and I feel like those things are illusions, you know, offered to us by insurance companies and, you know, other things.
And preachers.
Right. And I think that, you know, we want a quick fix, especially in this current day and age, you know, where everything's instant, you know, it's on our screens all the time. And, you know, if we want an answer to something, we just Google it, you know. But what about when you are addicted and you can't do something about it? What about when you've just made the worst mistake of your life, you know, like, and you're in trouble and it's just hit the fan, you know? Like, what about those moments? There's no Google answer to that. It's kind of like, and so, and it's not like God is coming to fix it all. It's just that he's present. You know, we're offered presence, not certainty. And it's in that presence that we hear the invitation to lift our head and to carry on somehow.
Wow. Dude, no, that's rich. I mean, we could sit here and write some songs just out of what you just said. That's great. So speaking of songs and songwriting, as you had this vision, this desire that you'd carried for a long time, back from the Delirious days into doing a Beatitudes project, how did you go about approaching the songwriting and envisioning what these songs could be?
Yeah, so I visited the Holy Land for the first time in 2013, and I sat on the Mountain of the Beatitudes and overlooked the Galilee. And you know, in the sort of peace and calm of that, I knew I could see the West Bank with all of the conflict there. I could see the Golan Heights on the left, and Syria's just over there. You know, it's just over the hill, right?
Yeah.
And with all this chaos, and I left there with this phrase that the words from the hill are speaking still. And and so I came back and I had a writing session with Anthony Skinner, who's a writer in town here, and I said, hey, how about we begin writing for this project? And so he'd already been thinking about the Beatitudes, and it had some phrases, but when I said that line, I think the words from the hill are speaking still, and he just immediately said back, and they save me over and again, and that became the chorus for the first song from the record, Oh Blessed, which is the introduction song to the project, because it mentions more than one theme, right? The idea was I wanted to write a song per theme, and we ended up writing more songs than we kind of needed, but it's because, you know, as I dived into the subjects, they just became so rich and full. So I just began to ask one or two folks. The first 3 songs that I wrote with folks were that Oh Blessed with Anthony Skinner, Heaven Is Around Us with John Mark McMillan.
Love that one.
Thank you. And You Will Make a Way with All Sons and Daughters. So they were the first 3 songs that I wrote. So the All Sons and Daughters song is the Pouring Spirit theme, and the
do you need them? I have a list of them all here,
you.
so yeah. There's more for me than you, but
no, it's good.
Just in case you needed a prompt there.
And and John Mark's song Heaven Is Around Us is one of the Meek themed songs.
Oh, that's so good.
So, and the idea behind the John Mark song is that, you know, when we say heaven is around us, like the invitation of the Beatitudes, you know, one of the invitations is this. So what does it look like to be on the hill in the first century? With no devices, you know, like we just talked about. There's no screens, there's no notebooks, there's no kind of like no way of remembering it. But the invitation is to open our eyes and be present to the people around us. And I think that that's the same invitation right now here in Franklin, Tennessee, is to open our eyes and to see the people that maybe we've seen as the other before, you know, and to be present to them. And that's, you know, the sort of old phrase about seeing God in the people that you meet, you know, that's kind of what that means. Heaven is around us. And the fact that in the Beatitudes, God is blessing those who we probably wouldn't see as blessed. And so what does that look like for me to open my eyes now and see the people around us?
Right.
You know, and just see this upside down kingdom in action. So so that was the John Mark song. The All Sons and Daughters, I'd written with those guys probably every year since moving to Nashville. And one I would always look forward every year to the time when they were writing for a record or whatever, and because I just love their voices, I love their songs, I love their sound, and so it's a very natural fit. And I just got a new guitar when I wrote that song with them, and it's a baritone 8-string, and so it kind of like it starts with that figure. Do, 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 do. And it kind of sounds a little bit sort of Hotel California-ish in terms of like, it sounds like it's a 12-string.
Dude,
you know?
I was afraid to say that that's what it reminded me of, but I was going to bring that up because it totally is that. Yeah, it's so cool.
But it's actually an 8-string baritone guitar, and so that was fun, you know. So sometimes I find that though, you know, like sometimes ideas don't come or they stop coming, and sometimes it takes picking up a completely different instrument that's tuned differently, or to tune your guitar something different, and that can, you know, sometimes that sort of unlocks the next song, you know. So that was that. And so we had those 3 songs, and we didn't have like a label or a way of doing this. My wife and I just decided that we would like pay for these first 3 to be recorded, and just see if there's like a green light or an open door, you know. And I mean, you know, Anthony Skinner, John Mark, and All Sons and Daughters, that's a pretty strong opening 3.
Yeah, for real. If you had to choose, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so, you know, we spent a day on each song in the studio with my producer Paul Moak, and that was 2 years ago. You know, since then we've recorded, I don't know, 14 others.
Yeah, and you co-wrote every one of them?
Yes, I co-wrote every song with the artist. Yes, yeah, and I felt like. So here's a thing, right? So moving to Nashville and Franklin, and having a publishing deal. When I first moved here, my publisher was Essential Worship and or Essential Sony, and then I'm with Integrity Music now for my songwriting. And so, you know, that was a very different thing to writing for a band. You know, Martin and I would be gathering snippets throughout the year, and then, you know, we would kind of get together in November, December, typically, and, you know, write songs together from our ideas. Well, being a songwriter as a job was very different and a shock. So, you know, when your publisher arranges a 3-hour session in the morning and a 3-hour session with someone else in the afternoon, that was a completely different way of working to me. And so, you know, and I really dived into that, and I had the privilege of writing with some amazing folks over those years. And I mean, I still do it now, so I'm not talking about it just in the past, but I got a little bit discouraged by feeling like I wasn't very good at it.
Really?
Yeah, and because it was so different, and so I feel like what's happened with writing the songs for the Beatitudes Project is that I feel like I've got my confidence back, and I realise what I'm good at. You know, it might not be coming into a 3-hour session and expecting to finish a song with someone. You know, wow. I feel like. You know, my strength in this has been concept and music, and offering the microphone and the pen to the other person to say, "Will you help me put your voice on this?"
Wow!
And so I feel like for me, collaboration has been everything, and I feel like for me that's my strength in songwriting.
Well, I mean, even in your bio, it talks about you being a supportive role for all of the lead people, you know, throughout 30 years on stage, everything you've done. So it makes sense, but what a humble place to be, you know, to realize that you're there to support and collaborate and not dominate necessarily.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's humble or if it's like, it's just what I honestly feel. Or
sensible. Maybe it's sensible.
You know, I've learned from people like Marco W. Smith, you know, who will write a ton of music and songs, but, you know, he would admit that he needs help with the lyric, you know, and that's not even an issue for him. You know, and so, you know, I try and protect myself and try and, you know, I've got to have every part of this song or something, you know, or I need to fight for my piece, you know, and that's just not worth it.
Stressful.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't it?
God.
Man, fighting for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's all about staying in our lane, understanding what we are, you know, created to do. You know, I was here at where we're recording this podcast yesterday with Tom Jackson,
right.
And we were talking about Taylor Swift because he's been the live music producer for 3 of Taylor's tours, and he was talking about having told her that, you know, before she was a gleam in her daddy's eye, that she was ordained and created to do what she does, you know. And I'm always reminded of, this is going to be a little obscure for some people, but a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem that is called "As Kingfishers Catch Fire," and it's just talking about how we were all created to do what we do. And as we go look that up, guys, it's just a great poem. It's a great sonnet from Gerard Manley Hopkins, and a kingfisher is a bird, and talking about how we are innately what we are. And I know for me, Stu, the times I've gotten into the worst trouble is when I get out of my lane, when I get out of what I'm created to do, which is create, work with writers, make music, you know, all this kind of stuff. So I love hearing that from you. And you've worked with some stellar people, the people that you've mentioned, but also, on Oh Mercy with Matt Maher and Audrey.
Yes.
I mean, killer.
Yeah.
All these guys, all these tunes are amazing. I'm not just blowing smoke because you're here on my podcast, but I bought the record, man. I mean, I bought it. I didn't, your publicist didn't give it to me. I bought it. So.
Oh, that's really kind. So Matt and Audrey, I mean, I end up, whenever I talk about one song, I say, oh yeah, this is my favorite song and with my favorite artist. And then I say it every time, you know. But honestly, with Matt and Audrey, what amazing voices. How articulate are they when they talk,
killer.
You know. It's just fantastic. And I wrote that song. I started to write it with Ian Cron. Do you know Ian?
Yeah, I know who Ian is.
So Ian's an author and a priest and a counselor and
teaches
spiritual director.
The Enneagram.
That's right.
Yeah. Not the pentagram, but the Enneagram.
That's right. So I started to write that with Ian, and then took it to Matt to finish, and just this idea of the hunger and thirst theme, which is what do you ache for, which goes into mercy, right? So just this idea of, you know, the thing that has the power over us, that is under our skin, that we don't feel like we can do anything about. And then in the song it's saying, you know, and under my skin forgiveness sets in, or under my skin your spirit within. You know, we're kind of like speaking into being, God being on the inside of us, and bringing us this mercy, you know, and to your point about the candle and the darkness, you know, the chorus says, "Oh mercy, Jesus, Son of God, oh mercy, shine your light on us." And we felt like it needed to be a duet, and so asked Audrey if she would come and sing with Matt. Longtime friends, obviously, those two, but just incredible voice that Audrey has, and how she kind of created this kind of almost an instrumental part with her voice in the bridge. And so deep. It's a deep well, that song, for me.
It is. Mm-hmm. All of them are deep.
Right.
All of them are deep. I mean, from just where they're coming from. And you wrote Morning Light with Amy Grant.
Yeah, let me talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
Because I was on tour with Michael W. and we were doing a show, and Amy Grant was doing the show as well. And we sat down I was having coffee in the green room or something, and Amy came and sat down beside me. And obviously just being a fan growing up and knowing how much of a superstar she is, you know, and so it's just really humbling. And so she sat down and just started to talk to me like, so what's going on in your world? What are you doing? And I told her about the baby idea at this time of what I was wanting to do with the Beatitudes Project, and she was really intrigued because she too had kind of like thought that some of these announcements were for like the holy and the spiritual and not just for people at the bottom of life. And so anyone that knows Amy would know how inclusive and how big her heart and arms are for people. And so she said, well, it's amazing. You know, if I can do anything, let me know. And I said, well, would you write a song? She said, yes, straight away. And
there you go.
It kind of shocked me.
Go.
And so we sat down. It took me a while to kind of pluck up courage to get back with her. But I said, hey, Amy, I've met this woman who's been on death row and been incarcerated for 27 years. And she had her sentence commuted to a life sentence and is now out on parole. And I said, how about we sit down with her and listen to her story of what mercy looks like to her and write from that.
Wow.
And so that's what we did. Amy invited us round for lunch, and and we sat down and listened to Gail tell her story, and also other women from Thistle Farms here in Nashville, Becca Stevens, and the survivors of prostitution, addiction, and trafficking, just lives on the streets for 20 plus years. These women come and get their lives back, and the same with Gail. She got her life back, and literally, and so, and a funny thing about that song is that Amy said to me, just send me some ideas, melody and chords. And so I was on tour, and the only guitar I had in my hotel room was my National Res Electric, which, if you just sort of play it acoustically and record on your voice memo, it sounds like a really bad banjo. And so I sent her this idea, and as soon as I sent it, I thought, oh, what have I done? It's like, it's not even an acoustic guitar. And I didn't hear anything back for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden I heard back from her, and she said, I love this idea and the chords and the melody, and we started to go backwards and forwards with the lyric.
Wow.
But what an incredible honor.
Wow. Well, that is an amazing story. Are there stories that go with every song like that, or just a few? Or how can we hear those stories? Yeah.
So the project is book, album, and film, like you say. We're currently editing the film together. That's not quite ready. The book, Words from the Hill, is out. It's out on NavPress and available at all outlets. And the same with the music. It's out. Came out in April and available on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon and stuff like that. So you can hear the stories in the book. You can you will be able to watch them on film.
Okay, so you captured these stories then in the book and the film. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Great.
Yeah, a lot of the book kind of became the backbone of the project in some ways, because it became about other people's stories and not just my own.
Wow, that is so powerful. You recorded with Amanda Cook. Of course, you're all over the record. Propaganda, tell us a little bit about Make a Little Trouble, because that's a standout track for me, with more the rap approach and the hip hop thing. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'd been a fan of Propaganda from a distance for a while. I followed him on Twitter and was aware of his work, and just his voice in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, but within the church, and so I didn't just want white Western voices on the record, and so and then with the persecution theme, which I call Holy Troublemakers, just this idea of like, what is it? Who am I colluding with? What am I speaking up for? What am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? Am I swimming against the dominant sort of forces in the world of violence and money and sex and power? Am I going against that and speaking up for people? And so I reached out to Propaganda on Twitter and just said, hey, got this project, would love you to be a part, are you interested? And he responded straight away and said yes. And he took me to school. He took me to lyric school, in terms of writing a lyric. It was amazing.
It is amazing.
And I was I love hip hop and that genre, but it wasn't my that's not my culture. And so, but I do love the Gorillaz. And so, where they kind of blend that kind of rock thing with hip hop. And so, Paul and I created a track and send it to Prop, and we were going backwards and forwards, and then ended up going out to the West Coast and recording his vocal.
Wow! Which sort of leads me, it's awesome. Which sort of leads me into the spoken word thing with Becky Harding, and so I'd known a little bit about her, but tell us a little bit about why you included some spoken word and working with Becky.
Yeah, so I have a mentor on a project. His name's Rabbi Joseph Edelheit. He's one of the people, because I'm not a theologian or a scholar. He's one of the people that helped keep me on track in terms of the text, right? So he always told me, you know, the first song needs to be about listening. What does it mean to listen? Where he said, because I think we've lost the art of listening like the people had in the first century. And so I'd already written the first song, right, with Anthony Skinner, and that was always going to be the introduction song. And so I thought, well, this is interesting. Let's sorry, my phone's buzzing. It might come across.
That's all right. No worries.
So I'd already written the first song, but I thought it'd be really interesting to have a spoken word or a poem about what it means to listen with no devices, no notebooks. Like let's put down even what we think we know of the text, and be really curious about it, and you know, and listen with our eyes and see who's around us and stuff like that. So but then it was like, well, who do I get to collaborate with on this? And so I also wrote a song with Martin Smith, my old Delirious bandmate, and we recorded that in London. And I said to him and his friends, like, do you know, like, I'm wanting some kind of voice and someone to help me write this track, this poem that is kind of more sort of urban language, and but something about what does it mean to listen. And so they introduced me to this girl Becky, who's a student in Brighton. And so while I was over recording with Martin, we got together and wrote this poem and recorded it there.
Very cool. Well, it's excellent, and it provides such a nice break from the songs as you listen to the record as a whole. It's a nice little step away into the spoken word, back into it. Kind of reminds you of where it all came from. A bit, right? Yeah,
that's right. So I hope that what comes across is not this kind of attitude of you must do this, you must change, you must see the world like this. It's really, I really want it to come across like a breath of fresh air, that, you know, mercy is ours to receive and to show. You know, it's like peace is something for us on the inside as well as what we can do, you know. And so I hope that, you know, first and foremost, that what people get out of this project is just like a big breath of fresh air for themselves, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a wonderful tool for contemplation, for meditating just really on the essence of the words of the Beatitudes, because it's not verbatim. It's not you've set, you know, verbatim scripture, you know, to song, but it is the essence and just the heart of Jesus that comes through these songs. So in a very beautiful, haunting at times, very engaging. I mean, I imagine using it to sit down and just put my headphones on and pray through it as a whole experience. I know that I'll continue to pull different choruses out, you know, as I continue to go deeper into it. But for me, it's just a beautiful experience. So thank you for the way that you wove all that together. Thank you. It's absolutely beautiful. Where do the listeners interact with that? I mean, obviously iTunes for... iTunes. You can stream it on Spotify or Apple Music. But it's available on Amazon. I think, you know, if folks, there's a central website called thebeatitudesproject.com that has links to everything. And also we'll be updating that when the film's ready and stuff like that. But, you know, social media, so you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name is @StuGio, STUGIO. And on Facebook, it's Stu G. Very cool. Well, I know that you're in the season now of finishing up the documentary, and then you'll continue to be promoting through this year and watching as the whole thing grows and takes off, and hopefully becomes a movement of the words from the hill and everything that you've done. Well, what's next? What's going on in your head that you could possibly share about maybe the next season for Stu? You know, the next season for me, I think if the next season is if
if the Beatitudes Project is a step into that next season, I'm happy to be talking about this and going out and playing songs from it and showing the film and, encouraging people. I'm happy to be doing that for the foreseeable.
So actually touring this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I don't know how I do that with a lot of the artists, I've kind of made that hard for myself in some ways.
Right.
But we're planning to do some events with as many of them as possible, and just trying to like work that out. So that's where the next few months will go. And people have said to me, have you thought about creating a curriculum-based thing around it, small group, or, I could see if we do that, then maybe we create an EP that is really about meditation and corporate singing, but, that's all in the future, really. Right now, I'm really concentrating on the film, getting that finished, and seeing how we can pull some events together.
Fantastic. Well, Stu G, you've come a long way from cassettes and from carrying a 1-inch tape machine in the back of the van to record Delirious.
Yeah.
But man, what a rich show with you today. What a deep heart for God that you have, obviously, and I knew that before I met you today, but deeply talented guitarist, the songwriting, just the history of what you've done. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you and thank you for the legacy of worship and ministry that you've done all these years, and you're not finished. And I think that this Beatitudes Project is just a wonderful, wonderful new season for you. And I just wanted to acknowledge the investment that you've made in the kingdom. And thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Oh, it's such a privilege to meet you and have you on the show today.
Thank you, John. It's really kind.
Any last minute, 60-second kind of, I don't believe in tips, tricks, and hacks. I think that's stupid. I feel like if you're a songwriter or you're an artist, it's all about hard work. It's all about inspiration. And so I get a little addled when people want tips and tricks and hacks. Yeah. But do you have any just parting words maybe for the songwriters that are listening to us today? A little word of encouragement maybe.
Yeah. I think that what I'm learning for myself every day is that, I can be really distracted by seeing other people doing things really well, and, it's easy to feel like you're getting left behind or left out, and so my encouragement to that is that you have a path and it's your path. And it's not other people's, it's kind of like, so it's kind of being patient and staying true to where you are at right now and to say yes to it and not keep wishing you were someone else.
Wow, dude. And go take the Enneagram with Ian Crone.
Right.
And you'll find out, artist, I'm like a number 4, which is like, you got to be unique. But then the weakness is envy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So thank you for those words. And thank you so much for your kind heart being here today.
Thank you.
On our podcast.
Great, John. It's great to be here. And I love every chance I get to talk about it.
Great, buddy. Thanks so much. Well, wow, I'm just blown away. This has been a fantastic episode. I think I'm going to come back and listen to this myself and get encouraged. But thanks so much, guys, for listening in. Remember that we've got our membership that is launched June 16. You want to be a part of that. We're offering introductory prices for this year. It's going to go up next year. But wow, what content we're going to be bringing to you that's already there. So jump in on that. Go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We've got our conference coming up here in Franklin, Tennessee, October 5 and 6. I'm going to be hitting Stu G up to be part of that maybe after today, since we're new best friends. But be sure and check out all the great things. Go back and listen to the podcast episodes that you've not checked out, because we have great people on past episodes. We've got hours and hours, dozens of hours of teaching and encouragement, inspiration for you. And we're inviting you. Let's change the world. Let's join the song revolution. See you next time. Thanks for being here today for the Song Revolution podcast from Nashville Christian Songwriters. We exist to empower you and to bring you some of the greatest inspiration, insights, and important people from the Christian music world to help you write your best and to be heard as the songwriter that you were born to be. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us over on Twitter and Instagram, and connect with us through our Facebook group called Successful Christian Songwriters. Until next time, I'm John Chisum calling you to a Song Revolution.